it's me for the second of today's videos. And yeah, we're now on Micronesia, the Federated States of Micronesia. They share the Eastern Caroline Islands, like the Marshall Islands and Gilbert Islands. So I just got ink from a printer over there somewhere. Like the Marshall Islands were probably first settled from the area of the New Hebrides. Like now Vanuatu, as Fiji sometime before 1000 BCE. Actually, archaeological and linguistic evidence suggests the earliest migrants worked their way up a chain of islands to the east and gradually separated westwards from the Marshall Islands, partially dating about 1000 CE. It has been found in Chuck. Really can't get this one out. And artifacts of similar antiquity have been unearthed in other islands in the east. As languages of the area, with the exception of Yap and of two other Polynesian outliers, sorry for mispronouncing this, but Kapingang Arangi and Nuko Oro atolls are closely related to the other and show striking similarities to Vanuatu tongues. Yes, I hate that one. It's like so thick and can't get in the box. Struggles getting out of the box. As high islands of Yap appears to have been settled from the west, probably from the Philippines or Indonesia. Pottery and shells found there date from the 2nd century CE and show resemblance of types discovered in the Mariana Islands. As the Yap caste system and other features of its social organisations are unparalleled elsewhere in the area, as renowned Yapese stone money was quarried in nearby Palau and Marianas, and in later centuries a reciprocal tribute and trade system was evolved with surrounding corals and atolls, sometimes terming the Yap Empire or Yapese Empire in the eastern islands of Pohnpei and Coruscant. It's like I really want to say Pompeii, but that's a little more closer to home to me in Europe and all that. Some 7 centuries ago, as some major social upheaval occurred, possibly under impacts of invasion from somewhere in the south, as fortified settlements were built in the huge ballistic logs, as the ruins are still visible today, and the political authority over each island was centralised, even as the society became more stratified. As the islands were visited occasionally during the 16th century by Spanish navigators and were later named for Spanish King Charles II, and as during the 19th century, European naval ships followed whalers and traders to the islands, and their inhabitants experienced the first intensive contact with foreigners. In 1886, Spain finally colonised the Carolines, but it was a short rule which was ended in 1899 when the islands were sold to Germany. At the conclusion of the Spanish-American War, Germany in turn yielded islands at the outbreak of World War I to Japan, which gained formal title to them in 1920 as a League of Nations mandate. And at first Japan attempted to develop a solid economy, but later it was used islands as an outlet for surplus populations, and fortified it just before World War II. And in July 1974, the Carolines, together with Marshall and North Marianas, became the United States Nations Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands under U.S. administrations, and they designated a strategic area to allow the United States to set up military bases as deemed necessary. Consequently, ultimate responsibility for the Trust Territory vested with the UN Security Council rather than with the UN General Assembly, as was the case with many other Trust Territories. As the Micronesian leaders later began negotiations with the United States for self-government in 1969, as the Constitution was drafted in 1974, became the basis of the Federated government that went into effect in 1979. But by this time, the Marianas and Marshalls and Palau voted to separate from the proposed federation, and this only left the inner states of Yap, Turok, later Truk, Kara, Kosrae, and Pranap, later Pohnpei, to compose a new political entity, which is now known as the Federated States of Micronesia. In 1983, lost where I'm up to. Plebiscite voters approved a compact free association with the US, as a compact which became effective on the 3rd of November 1986, provides an internal self-government while requiring the United States to remain responsible for defense and external security, and that it provides some financial assistance, as the articles on the compact allow the Federated States of Micronesia to become fully independent and alter its relationship with the United States at any time, providing this change the state is approved by plebiscites. The original compact had a 15-year duration. It was renewed by mutual consent in 2013 for another 20 years with some amendments, and it'll come back, possible renewal may come back in 4 years' time. As the renewed compact came into force in 2004, as the Federated States of Micronesia became a member of the UN on the 17th of September 1991. As the late 1990s were difficult for the islands, as President Bailey Alters suffering an incapacitating stroke in July 1996, just after he had been re-elected, and just before a series of natural disasters swept the inlands as typhoons, flooding and mudslides caused widespread destruction in 1996 and again in 1997, as well as a prolonged drought in 1998, attributed to the El Nino weather pattern, forced the declaration of a state of emergency, and during the following 2 years, cholera outbreaks killed several dozens of people in Pohnpei, following the institution of a national vaccination program. In Truk, the state, a long-standing movement, sought separation administrations for the Truk Islands in the early 21st century, as legislation was introduced into the National Congress by Truk admitted as a fifth state. The Federated States, or FSM, or Micronesia, is a sovereign island nation in the Pacific Ocean and a member of the Small Development States (SIDS) of the world, as Micronesia consists of 4 smaller states, namely Yap, Truk, and Pohnpei, and Carcere, or associating freely with US while its capital city is Palikir. And until 1986, Micronesia was a part of the UN's Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands under US administration. The fact that has made the FS, like Micronesia, ever dependent on the US to this day. As geographically, Micronesia consists of 607 small islands, grouped into 7 territories spread over about 271 square miles, with a longitudinal length of about 1,617 miles. As there are 18 recognised languages of the Federated States of Micronesia, 17 of which are indigenous, and 6 institutionalised languages with a total of 18, while 4 are still to be developed. As 4 of the languages enjoy wide use, and 2 are facing substantially challenges, and 2 are technically dead, as the languages that may not be mentioned include Kaping, Gamaring, Hangi, Walian, Olithian, Okurona, Pingalapis, Satawalese, Mortlakese, Natikese, Pulwatis, and Wakilese, among many others. Sorry if I botched any of that. I'm not an expert. There's a considerable number of older generation who speak fluent Japanese, owing to the political history with Japan during, from World War I to World War II. The majority of the 105,000 Micronesians speak English as the official language, with an estimated literacy level of 89%, as language is the official language of the institution, instruction, schools, government, and as well as commerce, and it owes its use to historical relationships with the US from 1947 to 1994, due to concern of preserving local languages while maintaining international languages, as Micronesia has a language policy that places importance on English as an international language and local dialects for cultural preservation. As Chuukese is an ethnic group that forms half of Micronesia's population, speaking their own dialects known as the Chuukese. As a Chuukese language is also called Chuukese, as it's most predominant in the Chuuk state, with small speakers found in Guam and other islands. As 45,900 locals identify themselves as natives of the language, that was starting with double consonants. As the Chuuk state use Chuukese and English as an official language, as official languages for instructions for students, from the 1st grade up to the 8th grade, and from 9th grade and onwards only English is used. As 48.8% of the Micronesian population can speak Chuukese. And is Carcerean, which has about 6.2% of the population, or 8,000 people, in mostly the Carcere state, and just the indigenous languages. School-going children between grades 1 and 3 learn it, and thereafter grades 4 and 5. Although they use Carcerean English, as Carcerean has 12 vowels and 11 consonants, as well as a variety of possessive adjective. And then there's Yapese, mostly spoken in the Yap state, as it's an Austronesian language, with approximately 7,000 speakers, as it has an interesting characteristic where the speaker pronounces all the words that have all the vowels at the beginning with a glottal stop, as the Yapi's distinct feature setting apart from all languages of the nation. As Yapi's is also used in schools similar to the previously two mentioned, and speakers make up about 5.2% of the national population. And then there's Yapian, which is spoken by about 24.2% of the national population of 30,000. In the state of Pohnpei, making it the second most popular indigenous language in Micronesia, though not a dialect of Chuukese, as the two languages share a close structural relationship. With an alphabet of 20 letters, as the language has different vocabularies and grammar that manifest themselves in a different socio-economic strata, meaning the rich and poor sometimes use different vocabulary. As Pohnpeian follows a similar rule in schools as the others previously mentioned and all. And yeah, here we're going on to a short legend of a sleeping lady, as it begins as the powerful gods planned to create this mountain in the shape of a man. Later they thought they would made the shape of the man and wouldn't produce seeds known as people, so the gods created the mountain in the shape of a woman, as the legends say that she was menstruating at the time, and today there's a place deep in the jungle located on the spot between the thighs where bright red soil can supposedly be found, as the Korean men use the special red soil to mix paint for their canoes, as the area was considered sacred place and only bravest men dared to go there. So yeah, that is the Federated States of Micronesia. So yeah, bye for now.